Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. The division championship Minnesota Twins are looking to go all the way to the World Series in 2024. Bolstered by inspirational shortstop Carlos Correa, a healthy Brian Buxton, and rookie phenom Royce Lewis, plus a pitching staff led by Pablo Lopez and an outstanding bullpen featuring Johan Duran, the Twins are the best bargain in the major leagues, and Target Field is the best venue in baseball. Sheridan Dulas & Kins, PA, a family and criminal defense law firm, has been serving clients in Dakota County and throughout Minnesota for over 40 years. Ranked a Tier 1 Best Law Firm by U.S. News and World Report every year since 2009, Sheridan Dulas & Kins are here to help you in your most difficult life circumstances. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello and welcome to Access to Democracy. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Raker, your host. On this edition of the program, we're welcoming as our guest Nancy Poland, who is an author, speaker, and trainer. So Nancy, I know you have lots of experience and a lot of good stuff to share with us. And the topic that you're going to be talking about is caring for others with grace and hope. And I just love that title because it conveys so much about what we need to be aware of and be focusing on when we're caring for others. Grace and hope are just wonderful words, and I know you're going to be sharing with us some of your experiences that illustrate how important and how effective it is when you're caring with grace and hope. Nancy, welcome to Access to Democracy.
Thank you, Bill, for having me today. I appreciate getting the chance to visit with you.
Well, it's going to be a great interview. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got started in the work that you're doing.
Okay. Well, I've lived in the Twin Cities my whole life. I've been married to my husband, John, for 43 years. I have a stepson, and then we had a son together who unfortunately passed away last year. And I'm not ready to talk about that, but I do have a little bit of his story on my website, along with some grief resources.
Sure, which are experiences that people can learn from by your sharing that with them.
Yes, and to learn about what happens to other people when they grieve. We've both retired, so we enjoy traveling. I love to write, to speak, and kind of our shared activity every night is we watch English detective shows. And
You have a favorite?
Oh, they're Midsummer Murders. There's a lot of them, but we try to outguess the plots. You know, we try to now who done it. So, and we're usually both wrong, but it's kind of fun.
Can you outsolve Perot?
Nope. We've tried that too, and I told my husband it's always a surprise.
Well, those are good diversions because in the kind of work that you do, you sometimes need to have a little diversion away from focusing on those particular areas.
Right.
So what brought you into this role that you do, and what are your objectives with the materials and the programs that you have?
So I've been like many of us, we've been caregivers in various situations in our lives. Our son was born 2 months premature, so he needed extra care than average baby. My stepson was only 8 when we got married, so there's a lot of learning about being a step-parent, and I was young. And for about 7 months, we were foster parents to a young boy who was 4 who had a lot of trauma. It was a family we knew, and they had some difficulties, and the county called us, and we took him in. So we were kind of surprised foster parents. But most of what I learned was through caring for my grandparents and my folks. My mother had taken in my grandma and grandpa, her parents, and at age 59, she had a mild stroke. I think a lot due to the stress of caregiving. And so right there I learned, how do you take care of yourself? And so I did help somewhat. They were then at my aunt's house for a while, but it was a family activity. And then as my parents aged, I really learned how tough it can be to be a caregiver for seniors. Or for aging parents, it could be another relative, an aunt and uncle, or someone like that. So I'm blessed to have three sisters that we worked together, and our husbands helped. It took the whole family to be able to manage the needs of my dad, who had severe dementia, and my mom, she passed away of kidney cancer, but she also had severe back problems, and various other things as she aged. So that was where I learned a lot. I wish I knew then what I know now. I think I would have been a lot smarter and maybe not so stressed out. But that's what got me into it. About 6 years after my dad died, I wrote my book, which I'll talk about later. Mm-hmm. But I just want other people to know that there's help out there. There are tons of resources, and you don't have to go it alone.
When some of us think about caregiving, we think about the elderly people as our population is quickly aging and changing the demographics and bringing new cases for need for caregiving all the time. But caregiving can be to someone at any age, as a receiver of care as well as a giver of care. So it's really not bounded by a particular age category, is it?
No, not at all. Like I said, our son was born early. He had some special needs. I'll talk about remarkable caregiving, but I have stories about a family with a son with Down syndrome and another family whose child had multiple disabilities. So yes, you can be caring for children. I mean, anybody can have a stroke at any age. You might end up being the sole caregiver of a sibling. And they're finding many young people are caring for their parents. So yes, caregiving is across the spectrum.
And caregivers need care as well.
Oh,
sure. And I believe that's what part of your work is about.
Yes.
So tell us more.
Okay. Well, as I said, my mom had a mild stroke when she was 59, and back in the day, I don't think they went to the doctor regularly, get her blood pressure, her cholesterol, all that tested. And it's so easy for a caregiver just not to take care of yourself. I remember when, it was an intense period caring for my mom, and she had surgery, and then my dad was there, and he was getting dementia, and I didn't go to the dentist for like a year and a half. And I am a avid dentist goer, and my dentist had switched, and suddenly I realized I wasn't taking care of those needs myself. And there's lots of statistics out there for people who die, like maybe an elderly gentleman is taking care of his wife who has dementia, and they die first. And there's just a lot of different facets to self-care.
Well, I'm sure that in our viewers, there are many people out there who are care providers to their family, or maybe they're professional care providers to people who are not their family. And we're so grateful for those people who are caregivers.
Yes.
Do you have any advice, any suggestions, helpful hints to these caregiving people to help them in coping with their own lives?
I do. I had met a gentleman who was in his 90s, and he had taken care of his wife for 10 years who had Alzheimer's. And fortunately, he was in a faith community where people would bring over maybe a casserole once a week, or bring lunch over and eat with them. Or his daughters would come stay with him while he could run errands. So part of the advice is, don't go it alone. Some people are just sort of stubborn and don't want help. And if you're caring for someone like that, it's important to try to break through that resistance. Because like I said, you're going to get sick, and you as a sick person or me as a sick person is not going to be able to take care of your loved one. So find help, keep your medical care up, keep your preventative things up. We all saw during the pandemic how people didn't do preventative care, and cancer incidences went up and all sorts of those things. So, you don't want yourself to get so sick. You can't take care of yourself or your loved one.
So that's all good advice.
Yeah.
And, it's when we're devoted to taking care of someone, whether it's a family member or whether it's a professional role that we have, it's easy to not think about ourselves.
Oh, yes.
Okay? And so I think this is an important message that we want to get to folks. What kinds of resources are available? Resources that you can provide, Nancy, or resources that other people or organizations have available where caregivers can go and take advantage of those resources?
We are so fortunate to live in Minnesota. For our viewers, are probably mostly here in the metro area or the outstate who are in Minnesota, because Minnesota has what's called the Minnesota Board of Aging. And they have the senior linkage line. And that is a referral, and I've used them myself. I mean, insurance is just a quagmire when you get to be Medicare age. And they'll help you find out how to learn about that, where to go. If you maybe need housing for your loved one, they can help with that. I mean, any question, there's no dumb questions. And they also have, as kind of an offshoot, trellis.org, which offers lots of caregiving help. And kind of another offshoot of that is Juniper. And I get their emails, and some are kind of fun. They'll teach, balance exercises, how to prevent falling. Some of them you can go to a class for, and some of them you can just do yourself. So there's many resources like that. I talk about in one of my books, there's a Down syndrome family who was trying to find housing for their older son, and Lutheran Social Service helped them. So they have help. Catholic Charities has some great resources. I was just looking them up today. And how I met you was through AARP. I know, Bill, and you were talking about spotting scams and frauds. And AARP, we just got this in the mail today, or a few days ago. They have a fraud watch workshop. And there's one actually coming up in Roseville on June 18th. And, frauds and scams, I'd like to think I'm at least average smart, and I'm not going to fall for these things. But one day, when we were signing up for Medicare, my phone rang, and it said Medicare, so I answered it, and yes, this is Joyce from Medicare, and she says, what is your birthday month? And I told her, and what is your year, is this your year of birth? I'm like, yes. Click, the phone hangs up. And let me tell you, Bill, I'm sure that was a fraudulent call, but I fell for it. So, none of us are too smart or too wary or too business savvy. I mean, any of us can fall for these things.
Well, and Nancy, financial abuse of an elderly person or someone with limited capabilities is always a risk.
Yes.
And it's so easy to fall under the ether of the scammers.
Yeah.
So that is an important area for caregivers to know about as well.
Yes.
Okay, so appreciate that you bring that point into the discussion that we're having today.
Yes.
You brought some of your publications with you. Why don't you take a moment here and share with us, our viewers, what these books are about and how they can help caregivers or people who are receiving care.
Okay. Well, I'm so excited about my books. I've written 2 of them. And the first one is called Dancing with Louie, a father-daughter dance before and after Louie Body came to live with us. And let me give you a hint, Bill. If you ever write a book, don't give it that long of a subtitle.
Okay, good advice.
Because it's a mouthful and it's a lot to write. But it's a story of my dad who had dementia, very serious dementia, and I as his daughter. Now, my dad had 4 daughters. My dad was a very self-made man. He was a World War II veteran. He ran his own business for years. One thing, he loved to write poetry, and there's his poetry in this book. But, he would say, I'm not having my daughters tell me what to do. Well, that became a problem when he couldn't keep track of money, appointments, medical care, all those things. So I say we dance to dance, and sometimes we danced a slow dance, and sometimes we danced a polka and couldn't keep up with each other. but it's really hard to be a caregiver in that light. And then in the back of the book, I have reflections and helpful tips for caregivers. So you can, I know you can't read this, but if you look, I talk about some of my own reflections, and then I have lots of helpful tips for caregivers. So that's a little bonus.
That's good to know.
Yes.
I think the caregivers need all of the help and all of the hints they can get.
Like I said, I wish I'd known the things then that I know now.
And so that's a personal story.
Yeah,
in
it's
that
a personal
book,
memoir,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And there's so much to learn
Yes.
by reading about real life situations that people have gone through,
Yep.
what their experiences have been, the challenges that they've overcome, and the gratification of a successful outcome.
Right.
That's always encouraging.
Right, and I wrote, at the end about grace and forgiveness, and I didn't always agree with my dad, and he didn't always agree with me, and sometimes he was angry at me as he got dementia, which wasn't in his nature. And I just found that you have to have so much grace and forgiveness, and I think caregiving made me a better person, and then looking back, it's like, who wants to do this? Who wants to help, their parents take care of personal needs, and who wants to argue with your dad about money and that? But, in the end, it's really an honor to walk through a loved one at these stages. And, we're all probably going to need that help someday.
It takes a lot of patience and empathy.
It does,
in situations like that, which
Yes.
are things that we need more of.
Oh, yes, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, what about some of your other publications?
okay. Well, I wrote this book, and it came out during the pandemic. Now, here's another hint, Bill. Don't release a book during the pandemic.
Well, let's hope we don't have any more pandemics.
Let's hope we don't have any more, but you can't plan ahead. But like most crises, you can't plan ahead. But
that's right.
But, I've been able to talk about it since. So then I thought, well, that went pretty well. So then I wrote my second book called Remarkable Caregiving. And I love this book. I love this book because this is my story, but these people are just absolutely amazing. I interviewed 6 people, and it's true stories, and it's different ways that caregivers took care of their loved ones. So there's stories of people with aging parents. There's 2 stories about children. Like you said, caregiving isn't just with older people. The family with Down syndrome and the family with the various disabilities. There's a gentleman who called himself the relief pitcher when he helped take care of his friend, and helped the man's wife out. So there's some great stories. People are just willing to share their hearts. And again, because my son kind of laughed at me, oh yeah, I'm so practical, but I have some appendices with different caregiving help in them. And the family that took in the lady's dad for 4 years, he had Parkinson's, she gave me this caregiving checklist for home care. So, what is your relationship with your loved one? Are you going to be able to get along if you live together? Is everyone in your household all in? A wife might move her family in, but her husband might just not be able to deal with it. How to care for
You're trying to
them,
point out things here maybe that people don't think about.
Yes, yeah.
When they find themselves in a situation
Yes.
where there's someone that is really dependent on
Yep.
them, and they have to take care of them,
Yep.
and they don't always think of all of the things that they need to
Right.
think about.
Yep.
And so that's intended to help them do that, right?
Exactly. And, can you even take care of someone? There's no one in my family who could have lifted my dad when he couldn't walk. He was still a big guy, and he was still strong. So you have to think of all those things.
So you have one other publication that you brought along to share with us.
Yes,
so
and
let's talk a little bit about that one too.
I did not write this, but it's by Dr. Aaron Blight, and Dr. Blight did give me a preface to one of my books. But he is so good. And what I love is what he talks about is family dynamics. So, what is your relationship with your parents or your loved one? What help do you have maybe from siblings or other relatives, or what help do you have, again, from a faith organization or someone? And it's, to really think about these things, because we all our families are interesting, let's just say, and, maybe you didn't have a good relationship with a loved one, or maybe, as they get older and maybe they get dementia, they're not as cheerful as they were. So he has just such great ideas. I just wanted to show that. It's called, again, When Caregiving Calls by Dr. Aaron Blight.
Okay. Well,
So,
thank you for
yes,
passing that
yes.
along. So Nancy, you've talked with us now about some of the work that you have done as an author. Do you have future books in the works that you're contemplating?
Well, I don't have any more books right now, even though I would love to write one. I have to work on selling these two first.
Okay. So that's part of your work as an author, but
Yeah.
you're also a speaker.
Yes.
Tell us what you do in that arena and some of the things that you have encountered and accomplished.
Okay. Well, based on remarkable caregiving, I developed a series of 4 adult education classes for my church. And I didn't just speak the whole time. I brought an attorney at one time, and I had a panel of people with children with special needs. And I shared some of my own story. And I just think that's really important for any faith community. And I'm happy to talk to any faith community. You know, I'm not against one or another. So that's important. And then I've done, like with caregiving group, I had a toolkit. So I just had cards with different topics and let them pick what was most relevant to them. I've done a number of web or audio things on the web. I've done some books and blogs. I'm trying to think. I did it with the Anoka County Library. I did a couple different presentations. One was on dementia and communication. And the other one was self-care is not just a hot dish delivery. You know, we love hot dishes in Minnesota.
Yeah, right.
And I talked about personal safety, preventing injury, finances, and mental health. You know, we might say, Bill, now you take care of yourself, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, that's just an expression. Take care of yourself, right? Yeah.
But there's a lot to that. So again, safety needs and all that.
So these are kinds of speaking opportunities that you have. Now, do you do things that are a little bit more in-depth, that what you would call training, that goes deeper and beyond just making a speaking presentation?
Yes, like the one I did on dementia and communication. It was more like a workshop where I gave some examples, and I had some of the participants do role playing. I mean, so they could, get a sense for, how can I communicate better with mom or dad, that type of thing. Yes, I am available for speaking. I did one which wasn't related to caregiving, but I did a presentation to a new leaders group on balance, which of course ties right in with caregiving. But yes, I can certainly, I've put together different talks.
Well, I know we'll have on our screens contact information if people or organizations are interested in connecting with you to explore more about the possibilities of you coming to make some presentations or doing some training.
Yes.
How far out do you go? I mean, do you focus here in the metro area, or are you available to work across the state?
Well, yes, I am retired, so I could pretty much go anywhere, unless it's a snowstorm. There are limits. But
Sure, yeah.
But now it's beautiful out, so yes. And I've done virtual talks too. When the pandemic came, I was a community educator for the Alzheimer's Association at that time, so I did lots of virtual talks too. So yes, but I said I have time, so I can come visit groups or talk to people.
So, Nancy, with all of the experience that you have, what has that meant to you? I mean, and you because you've had these experiences with your family, and you saw, because of what you went through, a need to have greater focus on the caregivers themselves.
Yes.
And how they should be given attention with grace and hope.
Yes.
What have been some of the more important things that you've learned that you want to share with our viewers?
I'll tell you what, Bill, my heart just goes out to people. And I've met a lot of people between selling books and speaking. I met one lady who said she was the only person in town to take care of her aunt, and her name was on her aunt's checkbook and all her credit cards, and her aunt had dementia, and she was spending a lot of money, and I'm just like, whoa, you got to put a halt to that. And she didn't understand some of the legal ramifications, of her aunt right out and spent a lot of money and how she could be liable. And, people, my husband or wife won't let anybody else help. And, my heart just goes out to them, and it's hard. Or maybe they don't have kids around to help, that type of thing. So I feel like I do so little, like I'm just a little drop in the bucket. But, if I can just help maybe one person a month, or, a group of people, just try to find some resources and try to learn about, what is happening to them. I mean, that's where I feel good about it.
Well, it's a need that you're addressing, and we
Yes.
appreciate your efforts and your attention to that. Nancy, do you do anything like mentoring or coaching or consulting with people in situations where they really need help? I mean, sort of, not like, but sort of like going to a psychiatrist for help. Okay. I mean, do you do things like that? Can you do things like that?
I could do it on a more informal basis. I mean, I'm not a licensed social worker. I'm not a medical person. Somebody just asked me actually if I could give her grief therapy. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not licensed to do anything like that. But if you want to talk to me, I'll talk to you. So, and I do know people who do coaching. I can help make referrals. But I haven't really ventured into that in kind of the bigger picture. I'm just more, trying to touch as many people as I can by speaking and doing my writing and that type of thing.
Well, this kind of help and this kind of support can come at all kinds of different levels.
Right, yeah.
And from all kinds of different sources. And you're filling a particular niche, which is very helpful and very important to people. So if someone, just needed to talk, you would be available to do that.
Oh, for
and
sure.
We wouldn't call it officially counseling or anything like that.
No, nothing like
but
that.
It's just a listener.
A listener, and again, I'm great at looking up information. If you don't even know where to start with finding a housing for your parent or something like that, or just a vent, I'm available. Like I said, I'm retired, so I have time to help people and talk with people.
And you've been down many of these paths yourself.
Yes.
So you kind of know how to give someone pointers about, well, if you need this help, you can go there. And if you're looking for this kind of assistance, this organization can help you with that. That's part of what your mission is, isn't it?
That's my mission, just to help people, give some people some grace and some hope.
Nancy, you've talked with us about an extremely important, but yet it's a sensitive kind of issue that most people don't like to talk about, don't like to maybe even think about. But as the need for caregivers continues to grow, we're going to need more and more of them.
Yes.
There's going to be caregiving in institutions, senior living facilities and things like that. But there's also going to be there is a need for caregivers in the home, because not everybody's going to go to a senior living facility. Thank you so much for drawing attention to what that need is. And to the folks who are out there providing care, we so much appreciate what they're doing for those that depend on them. Well, any final words, Nancy?
Okay. Just people know that they can maybe find ways to avoid a crisis by doing some homework, by using some of these checklists, by looking for resources. So do your homework and don't go it alone.
Nancy Poland, our guest on Access to Democracy. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. Remember, our programs are available on accesstodemocracy.com.